I appreciate you having me on. I definitely extremely grateful to everything that university has done for me. Both my wife and I went there. Met some of my best friends there. We got engaged on the horseshoe. So South Carolina is near and dear to my heart for sure. If we could just win some more football games, that'd probably be a good start. But besides that, I have loved South Carolina. It was a dream to play on the soccer team, and I got to do that for 4 years. So happy to be here and talk about accounting. I know most of the time people do not want to talk about accounting at all. Um, the whenever I get asked if what do I do for a living, and the question is, and I respond with and say accounting. Um, it's normally a conversation ender. Nobody wants to talk about it. But it has been a great career for me. It is my time at South Carolina set me up well to succeed in accounting. So I'm glad to answer any questions. I do have the chat pulled up. If you ask questions throughout, I'll try to answer. But yeah, I'm gonna just move on to let's see here, some accounting stereotypes. So most time, I'm a big fan of The Office, big fan of Parks and Rec. So I don't know if y'all are familiar with those pictures, but Kevin Malone and one of the characters from the accounting firm in Parks and Rec. That's generally how accountants are portrayed. People that just sit at their computer, kind of nerdy, introverted, boring. Like I would say all of those, just like calculators, Rubik's Cube sitting on Kevin's desk right there. That's what you picture a typical accountant. But one aspect of it too that people will always say, I do accounting. They say, "Oh, can you do my taxes?" Sometimes the answer is yes. A lot of accountants do taxes, but oftentimes it's not. There's a lot more to the accounting field than just doing taxes. That my day-to-day job, I've worked 5 years in the accounting field, and I have done hardly any taxes. But I have the experience. I took one tax class in school. It's part of the CPA exam, so I'm familiar with it. But tax law is very complex, very confusing, and if you're not doing it 100% of the time, then it's tough to say you're an expert. And honestly, it only makes up a small part of the accounting field. So that's just something to note. Just because someone says they're in accounting doesn't necessarily mean they do. They do tax work. But I also want to talk about some of the qualities of what a good accountant looks like. I kind of pulled some of these. Some of these are kind of generic, and you could almost apply to any career. Organized, excellent time management, attention to detail, like all those. You're gonna need that in any career, no matter what you're doing. But the aspects that are, I kind of have the next three as the most important ones: strong communication skills, committed to serving others, and being able to work as a team. I would say those are the most critical aspects of my job currently and my job over the last 5 years. Strong communication skills for an accountant, kind of going back to the stereotypes, is you wouldn't think that would be something that's very important, but I would say it's absolutely critical to my job. It's being able to, a lot of accounting, a lot of what I do is taking information, organizing it into a way that makes sense, and then being able to say, okay, this is what this information means. It's either providing that information to someone so that they can understand it, but I would say communication extremely important, and that kind of goes together with working together as a team. A lot of times, accounting departments, in my experience, are very close-knit groups. It's not a particularly competitive environment. It's all trying to achieve a certain goal. And so I think that's been a major part of it too. And then committed to serving others. A lot of times the accounting departments I've worked at 2 different banks now, and they're not profit centers. They're not bringing in money to the bank. So it's trying to figure out how best we can serve other people within the organization that are bringing in revenue, that are generating new business. So it's kind of just a commitment to serving others, very important. And then the last aspect, obviously, didn't go to Clemson. Can't be a good accountant if you went to Clemson. I figure this is a good safe space to say that. I do have some Clemson friends that are accountants, but I would say they're probably doing it more despite despite going to Clemson as opposed to because they went to Clemson. I'm making, obviously I'm making jokes and I can't really see faces or hear laughs, but hopefully y'all agree with me. But yeah, kind of going back to why I chose accounting. Going into college, I knew that I wanted to do something in business. Didn't really have too much direction with it. But kind of going through the first round of business classes, I really like how the Moore School makes you take a class in each of the different business aspects. And to me, it stood out that I don't know if it's changed in 5, 6, 7 years since I was taking accounting classes in school. But you had to take one marketing class, one finance class, a global supply chain class, but you had to take 2 accounting classes. Every student that was going to graduate from Moore School had to take at least 2 accounting classes, and they were difficult. They were not easy. They were 2 of the hardest ones that a lot of people took while they were in school. But to me, that just goes to show how important accounting is to the overall business. You have to have some basic knowledge of how accounting works in order to have a successful business, and it can be a challenge. Last week, I don't know if any of you guys tuned in to Kathleen. Her career day, she's started her own marketing business in Columbia, and people were asking her what's her greatest challenge of her job, and it wasn't generating new business, coming up with marketing ideas, things that she kind of spoke to, keeping up with the books, making sure that all of my financials are in order, and that was a major challenge for her, and I kind of found that interesting. Just because it's so crucial to every business. And, as I was going through school, I kind of figured that out. There's a lot of different things you can do. It's not just tax work. My job now is financial reporting, which is, again, gathering data, putting it into, a form that can be spread so that information can be shared. It's kind of a generalization of how it typically of what I'm doing, but it's trying to find the best way to get information to people, kind of at the core. There's lots of different things you can do with it. When I worked at the small community bank, First Community, about $1 billion in assets in Lexington, I was doing everything from financial reporting was one part, but accounts payable, keeping up with fixed assets, budgeting, kind of all those sorts of areas. So it kind of gave me a broad direction. That's kind of why I settled on it. Get just a strong business basis. But while I was in college, the recruiting was a major part of it. But I know a lot of you guys are in college trying to sort through probably accounting. Maybe you may be going through this now. I'm sure it looks a little different in a COVID world. But while I was in school, there are public accounting firms that are trying to seek out the top accounting candidates. Sophomore, junior year, there are events. And I strongly encourage that you take advantage of those. Step out of your comfort zone, go to those recruiting events, because it's for me, it was not something I necessarily wanted to do, but is extremely important. And I got to feel, here's what people are actually doing, what I would like to do, and I can just have time to ask them questions and learn and see what they're doing. I ended up working for Elliott Davis, who's on the sheet. I actually pulled this picture off of Beta Alpha Psi accounting fraternity website. It is an old one. It's from 2017, but these were all the firms that were present at a recruiting event. So they definitely show up, and you have to find the one that was the right fit for you. Where they have offices, what kind of industries are they in. I ended up getting an internship with Elliott Davis, but I went and interviewed, went to recruiting events for a lot of the other ones, Deloitte, Ernst & Young, Grant Thornton. I went to events for all of them. Sometimes it wasn't a good fit for me. Sometimes they didn't think I was a good fit for them. So it kind of went both ways. But it was, an interesting experience, and, just trying to see what kind of corporate culture you want to fit yourself into. To me, public accounting was a great start to my career. Kind of the public versus private, that to me, that made the most sense. Those were the people that wanted to hire a lot of people right out of college. And a lot of times you go to talk to someone, the first question they would ask, do you want to do audit or tax? Those are kind of the two fields that public accounting firms are looking for people, and they're very different. So kind of decided I would just, whenever I was going to those events, I would ask, do I want to do audit? Do I want to do tax? Like, what do you do on a daily basis? Auditors typically are going out and meeting with clients, in person, assuming that there's no global pandemic going on, but getting to know a lot of different organizations, kind of seeing how they all are different, how they're the same, verifying that information is correct, as opposed to tax people, at least from my experience, were more in the office. They would work kind of a little bit more behind the scenes. A partner would be the face of the team that would talk to clients. But honestly, audit seemed like the right fit to me. A lot of times auditors are more prone to travel, go see different organizations, and that appealed to me at the time. But ended up getting an internship. So the general process is you go to a recruiting event, get asked to interview, they give you an internship. If you do well with the internship, you get a job. So that's kind of strewn out over a 2-year process or so. And I was lucky to get an internship with Elliott Davis. Really enjoyed it. Got to meet a lot of great people. Eventually got offered a job. And it was really just a good fit for me. But ultimately it was just choosing the people that I got to work with. I actually work with still today, even though I've left Elliott Davis, went to another job, and now I'm working for one of my bosses from Elliott Davis. I met a lot of great people. Some of my best friends were at Elliott Davis, and so that was a kind of a good fit for me. Kind of going into my first job at Elliott Davis. A lot of the public accounting firms, give you time to study for your CPA. And I would definitely recommend doing that. It is not an easy test. But it was 100% worth it for my career. I would say right now, if I were to take it again, I may not pass, because it's difficult. It's a lot of memorization. But it proves that, you're willing to work hard to achieve a goal. It gives you a base knowledge of everything in the accounting world. And people recognize it now. Like people see it on my resume. Was easier to get a second job because of it, and now a third job because of it. So I think that was something that's important to do, to try to find something to distinguish yourself in your career going forward, and just showing your commitment to learning. And the one thing that people always talk about with public accounting jobs is busy season. How busy is your busy season? What do you do during busy season? It kind of aligns with tax season, but I was in the audit field, so it's a little bit different. Usually it's a little bit earlier in the year. It is busy because, generally businesses have their year end at 12/31, December 31st. And as soon as December 31st hits, it's a process to make sure that they can complete their financial statements by their due date, a lot of times in March. And so that kind of January 1st to March 31st-ish area is a busy time. All your clients are going through the same process. And so you're trying to, take them one at a time, but they all kind of stack on top of each other because they all have the same deadlines. So that's what makes it a little busy. But honestly, it was, for my experience, I was at a regional sized accounting firm, Elliott Davis, and it was I knew it was going to be a little bit longer hours, but to be honest, it was not something that I thought would deter me from an accounting career. We would work some nights, some Saturdays, but the people that I worked for, were cognizant of that. People were working hard. They knew they needed to get the job done, but they didn't want to push people over the limit or anything like that. I know Big Four accounting firms, the KPMG, PwC, those types of things can get a little more crazy. So that's kind of why Elliott Davis I thought was a good fit for me. But I know that's something that people always ask about. And honestly, it was not something that I was too afraid of. But kind of going in, so I did that for 3 years, going to community banks, typically in South Carolina. Every week I was on the road, going to a different community bank, getting to learn their culture, getting to learn about the people there. So it was interesting. I got to learn a lot in a short period of time. So that's something I enjoyed. But then kind of transitioning to private industry, honestly, I loved working in public accounting. I felt like I could have worked there for a long time. But the travel, I was starting to get married. We were getting engaged. And then, we kind of had the discussion. Yeah, I don't think I can travel for forever, and be out of town 50, 60 nights a week. While it was fun, just coming out of school, it wasn't going to work for my relationship. So I started looking for different jobs, and one opportunity showed up in Lexington. I'm from Lexington, at one of my audit clients, First Community Bank, and to me that's was pretty cool to me that I had an opportunity to work for them, because it was a result of building relationships and doing a good job on an audit and getting to know people that worked out for me. And so I worked there for 2 years. It's definitely a different setup than public accounting. Working in the private industry, you're working for a business. You have one particular goal to just maximize everything for that one business. You get to learn the entire organization. Typically in public accounting, you're talking to your team as accountants. The people you talk to are accountants in the accounting field. But when I was moved to working at First Community, a private bank, I talked to people that did everything. I talked to people that were, generating loans, the people bringing in money to the bank, that were customer service representatives, the people that you talk to, I would talk to them, because accounting touches on a little bit of everything. So it's, it was just an opportunity to get involved with a little more than just the accounting, and have focused my skill set, my accounting background, my audit background, into figuring out how to benefit this company and to make it better, and being able to serve others and doing that. And to me, that was a pretty interesting, transition. Now I work for, so that was, our accounting team there was probably four or five people. I did financial reporting, which is what I do now, but that was just one aspect of it. Again, I kind of went through the other things that I did there. Anything from fixed assets, accounts payable, budgeting. Those are kind of the main job duties. Like I signed checks, just because someone needed to do it. So as opposed to now, I work at AgFirst Farm Credit Bank in Columbia. It's a much larger organization. I work in the financial reporting department, which is about 4 or 5 people. And that's, as opposed to that being one aspect of my job that I did at the smaller community bank. So just kind of interesting to see how that all fits together. There's a whole team that does accounts payable at AgFirst, as opposed to, half of a couple people's jobs. So just kind of interesting seeing how those have fit together. There's benefits to both. But yeah, it's definitely been interesting. In 5 years, I've had 3 jobs, all different, but all within the accounting field. And to me, the most important thing is, when finding a job, is making sure that you fit, that you're working for people that share values that you have, that, care about you, that, and that you look up to. I've worked for a couple different people that are, I definitely see as mentors. I see as people that that have invested in me, that I want to do a good job for them. And so I encourage you to try to find relationships like that. It doesn't come about right away, but trying to develop those in your career are extremely important. And so that's just something that, and also being a part of companies where you align with their goals. Like I worked at a community bank that serves a lot of small businesses, and making sure that small businesses have access to funds, and that they're taken care of. They have the service that they need. So that was something that First Community Bank, they dealt with small businesses pretty much exclusively. So that was kind of cool that, getting to be a part of an organization doing something that I believed in. And kind of the same with AgFirst and the importance of farmers to our country and getting food on our table or whatever it may be. Just being a small part of an organization that does something like that, it makes the job easier. It makes you see the purpose at the end of the day. So that's something that's I've enjoyed out of the private industry. Now, I have worked the last couple months remotely. My new job has been 100% remote, so it's definitely been interesting. There are perks and there are things that I don't enjoy quite as much and that have been challenges. I kind of put a picture up there of a guy dressed up but wearing his pajamas. So I am wearing shorts right now, so I guess that's a perk. But for the most part, I miss seeing people for sure. There has been new accounting standards. I've done a lot with the PPP loans, and a lot of the government funding has made some accounting standards different. So trying to keep up with that has been a challenge. But really, trying to make it a focus to get to know people, still being in conversation with them when you can't just lean over and talk to them. It's been a challenge for sure. Definitely more dependent on technology than we ever have been. If the internet goes out here, we cut off and, I won't be able to work. So it's definitely a challenge, trying to figure that out. I think it has accelerated a lot of companies leaning on technology. At First Community Bank, the goal was always to have people have laptops so they could work remotely, but it was, definitely accelerated come March that everyone was getting laptops as soon as possible so that, we could work remotely. And for the most part, the accounting profession, I would say, is able to work remotely fairly successfully. I think there's a little bit of a learning curve at first, but most organizations that I know of, most friends that I've talked to have been able to continue, kind of without a blip. It's definitely trending towards more paperless. Back in the day, there, like, everything was, printed, signed, records kept kind of on paper. That's definitely not the case anymore. It's definitely moving more towards that, which I think most college students would expect and can handle. But just kind of showing that it's more that it is kind of moving towards that. And I would just say, just one tip that I've learned is to be adaptable. That kind of is always, even now, it's important. But I would say that the coronavirus has made it, extremely important to be able to adapt to any situation, kind of be able to, take what's in front of you and, find the best way to do it. Just because it's not just the way it was done in the past is not the best way it needs to be done in the future, and just kind of figuring out how best that all fits, and just not being flexible and being able to do that. So I kind of just have a quick list of just general career tips too. Things that I've learned in 5 years. Again, it's a short time. I'm not telling you I have all the answers, but these are things that I would advise to people, starting out in the accounting world that want to know more about accounting. Is to serve others is the number one thing. I kind of talked about accounting departments are usually service departments. And they are close-knit groups, kind of mentioned that too, but just finding ways to serve others professionally, find out where you can help someone, make their job easier, make it better, but also personally, get to know your coworkers, get to know the people that sit next to you, that answer the phones at the front door, let people in the front door. Building relationships is something that I think is extremely important. Again, it's more of a challenge in the coronavirus world, but I would say just getting to know people, again, it takes time, but I would say very, very important to general job happiness and ultimately the successfulness of the business as well. I also would put get involved with people, but both at your job personally and professionally. Professionally, I would say, take every opportunity to be a part of, whatever it may be. Ask your boss for more things to do if it makes sense. Ask if you can be involved on things. Just because I think that just shows you that you want to want to do more, that you want to continue to learn, that you want to be a part of it. And I kind of put continuous learner on there too. Every day I'm learning something new, and I expect that'll be the way for my entire career. It's like I don't want to get caught being stagnant, staying in one spot, being doing the same thing forever. Just trying to learn new ways to do it. And I think that's extremely important. And then just kind of get outside your comfort zone. I just think, again, challenge yourself. I'm not a particularly, great public speaker, but Haven asked if I wanted to do this, and this is kind of outside my comfort zone. But I try to do that all the time. I try to be a part of organizations and just kind of get myself out there. I'm a part of Leadership Lexington class, just kind of, got to meet a whole bunch of people that I don't particularly know. I am a part of the South Carolina Young Alumni Council, kind of getting to know people. I would say, that's not something that I would seek out those if I just wanted to stay in my comfort zone. So I would say challenge yourself to do that. Try not to get complacent, always be hungry for more. So I would say those are just kind of some of the general tips that I have. So I think that's really all I've got. I put my contact information on here. That is my personal cell phone number. If there's ever anything I can do for you, don't hesitate to reach out. I've made it, 5 years, 3 different jobs because of, mentors that I had, people that I reached out to while I was in school, and just kind of stuck my neck out and said, hey, I'd love to learn from you. If I can do anything like that for you, I would love to. So if that's something that, if I can do to help, I would love to. So yeah, if y'all got any questions for me, that's about all I got for now. I kind of rambled on probably a little bit longer, but yeah. Here's a question. So what is your favorite part of your job? I think the easy answer for me is the people. The people that I work with, getting to know them, that's probably my favorite part. But from the accounting side, I really enjoy, taking information and directing it towards, putting a story behind numbers to know, okay, this is what this is saying. This is where the company needs to go to reach its goals. And so that's kind of what my job in accounting now is kind of seeing, here's the information. How does that direct the goals of the company? And just kind of seeing that all the way through is actually pretty interesting to me. I don't know if that's interesting to anyone else, but kind of seeing, why companies make decisions the way they do, why they do mergers, or, why they close business lines as opposed to, or open a new one. Just kind of seeing all of that, is something that I think I find the most interesting. Next question is, what was it like to be a student athlete and take business classes? I'm sure you're very busy. Yes, busy, but honestly, I think it helped. I had a very structured schedule. We had class was, a certain block of time for class in the morning. Then there was practice after that, and sometimes lifting after that, and then it would be study hall. So it was kind of structured that I did have, I didn't have too much time to think about different things. It was kind of set up to, there are people in place to help you succeed as a student athlete. There's a student athlete academic advisor. I think South Carolina has that set up better than a lot of places, that I kind of saw going through soccer recruiting. But I think soccer, and really sports in general, being a part of a team set me up well for my career. And I think you can take that from high school sports wherever you were too. So I think it's, being a part of the team, having the structured lifestyle, prepared me well for my job outside of college. So it was a challenge, but honestly, I think it helped me more than anything else. All right, next question. Got to move my face over. What are your tips for networking if you want to get into the accounting field? I think the first step is definitely putting yourself out there. especially in college, going to recruiting events. And, first impressions do mean a lot, especially in those when you're getting a 5-minute conversation with someone. So they'll ask questions of, what do you like to do in your free time? And I would say just have answers prepared for that. Just it's almost like a quick interview, but just being easy to talk to. Ask them questions. I'd say that's extremely important, but really just the hardest part for me was getting myself there. Taking advantage of the opportunities that were in front of you. So I would say in college, it kind of is easy. There's events set up outside of college. Networking, there's a ton of organizations to be a part of. I think if you put an emphasis on, something that you want to get involved in, let your boss know. I'm sure a lot of times they want people getting out and getting, out in the public. So I would say, general tips is, being open to meeting anyone. And, because a lot of times the other people aren't super comfortable in those situations either. Because I was on the other side, at LA Davis going to recruiting events, and, it's not something that they necessarily want to do either. But the more you can make out of those situations, the better you'll be in the long run. Another question is, can you discuss more about how to get your CPA? Yeah, so I can do that. So I kind of always knew as a focus when I was going out to be a public or to work in public accounting. It is a four test process. There's material out there. I use Becker study material, which I highly recommend. A lot of the accounting firms will pay for it once you have a job offer. It's expensive, but I would say it's crucial. Like, I spent a lot of time. My wife can probably attest to it. While we were dating, I spent a lot of time, nights after work, mornings before work, kind of for a couple of months just to try to knock it out. I was lucky enough to pass my tests on my first try each time. So you needed a 75 to pass each GPA exam. There's 4 different parts. One of them's tax. There's one on audit, and the other ones are like an econ and financial accounting. Those are the 4 parts. On 2 of them, so you need a 75 to pass. On my last 2, I got a 75, and then the one after that, I got a 75. And it's like the minimum score you could get is what I got. So it was, I did not breeze through it. It was very difficult. But people don't ask what I got on the exam now. They just see that I got a CPA. So it worked out. But it was not something, I've never been one to shy away from a challenge, and the CPA was certainly a challenge that I wanted to achieve. So it was worthwhile. I think it's easier at the beginning of your career than the longer you wait, because a lot of it does overlap on things that you learn in school. So I would say my advice would be as soon as possible, when you're graduating, or, right after. And another question, are there study programs to help you pass the exams? Yes, there are a few. The one that I use is Becker. They got a workbook that you work through. There's videos, and they line up pretty well. They have practice tests, so I did a lot of those. So, I kind of went through that process of, to be honest, I didn't really. Some people will kind of skip around and nitpick things that they didn't do. I didn't. I went start to finish on the whole thing, and then as soon as I was getting close to being done, I'd schedule a test and I'd take it. So that process worked for me. I stayed committed to a schedule. Like, I knew I need to get through these sections by this week. I had that all planned out. So I would say, make a schedule, make goals, and, stick to them. Another question, what are your tips for an alumnus or alumna who want to switch careers into the accounting and finance field? Do they have to go back to school, or is there anything else they can do? Let's see. I would say it's a little bit difficult. They do have, I know tech schools have, accounting degrees that you can get. I would say it is difficult, but not impossible. I think if you make an emphasis and say, either to your employer or new employer that, I'm willing to learn, if you can prove that you're willing to learn, I would say I would be open to that as someone who would be looking to hire, like if just being willing and able to learn. A lot of times accounting is a difficult thing to hop into, just because it's a little bit like a foreign language. But I would say it's definitely possible, by any means, if someone wanted to switch into the accounting profession. Showing that you're trying to take the CPA exam, or that you're taking it and that you've passed some of them, I would say that goes a long way. If it does get a little difficult if you have to have a certain amount of accounting hours. So I don't know if you were to not have that, it gets a little more difficult, but really just willingness to learn, I think, is important.
It looks like someone maybe raised their hand for a question. If you guys have a question for Ryan, if you'll just type that into the chat feature, since you don't have audio capabilities, the chat is on the bottom of your screen. If you move your mouse down, little bubble, and then you'll be able to type a question.
Another question: how do you know when it's time to move on to the next job? For me, it was extremely difficult twice. Now that I've done it in 5 years twice, it was extremely, extremely difficult because I had built up relationships to get to know people personally, people that I cared about a lot. But ultimately, I think I had to make decisions that I thought was best for me. When I was in public accounting, I think it was somewhat easy that I knew that I needed to leave, just because I knew that traveling a lot wasn't going to fit with my my personal relationships, my getting married. I knew that wasn't a long-term fit, so that decision was a little easier. Most recently, this switching from working at a smaller community bank to a larger farm credit bank, and the farm credit system was definitely more difficult. But ultimately, it came down to, I think, career opportunity and career potential. It made it a little bit easier, it made it a lot easier knowing that I would be going to work for someone that I knew and respected a lot, that I had worked with from my LA Davis days that had transitioned to AgFirst. So that made it easier. But I think for me, it was long-term growth, long-term learning potential. I thought it was the right fit. I have worked. So I went to Columbia, got a job in Columbia, got a job in Lexington, now back a job in Columbia. So it was easier knowing that it was not too far away. Just going back downtown. So I think it was an opportunity I felt like I couldn't pass up. But those have come about, job opportunities, just from trying to do a good job, trying to do people the right way, and just trying to serve others in my current position, getting out there and doing some networking and getting to know other people has definitely been helpful too. So I'd say opportunities presented itself, and I just try to take it one day at a time, and to get to where I am now.
It looks like the chat may have been disabled for a few participants. So it looks like we got that cleared up now. If you all are having any issues typing into the chat before, you should be able to type in all of your questions now. I do apologize for anyone that was having trouble with that.
Yeah. All right, here's a question. Were your internships paid or unpaid? And how important do you think internships are? I had the internship at LA Davis was paid. It was, I would say, critically important to me as a college student, I got to see, it was paid. That made it a lot better. I think it would still have been something that I would have done if it was unpaid. It would have been more of a challenge for sure. But there's nothing like getting to, when you're going through the interview process, you're talking to one person. They can tell you what the job is, but you don't really know until you get to see it. You don't get to see where you sit. You don't get to see what people do for lunch or things like that. You can ask those questions, but getting to be a part of it and see it, play out. I think that's what I got the most out of my internship. I got to see, what my life would look like if I accepted a job there. So to me, it was, that they were investing in me. I got to learn and see, but then I also got to see them and see what that whole process looked like. So I think that was really, really beneficial to me. Getting paid was great, but honestly, if it was unpaid, it would have been great too. And do you recommend double majoring in finance and accounting? I would say yes. If it's possible, if it works with your schedule, I think it was great for me. I was able to do it, and I don't know if things would change in the more school, but it was pretty easy to double major. There's only a couple extra courses, and to me, it just kind of gives a little bit more of a background. A lot of times, accounting is you're looking retrospectively, looking back, and making sure that things were done correctly. Finance is a little more prospective, looking forward, making sure, like kind of doing budgeting. Like I probably would have benefited more from having even more finance classes, my time at First Community. So I think it's pretty interesting just to see. I think they are a good match. There's definitely overlap, but I think they're a good match for each other. So I would recommend it if it works with your schedule. Is there a route to go other than the public accounting route? Absolutely. I think there definitely is. I think a lot of times it's a little harder to find outside of public accounting. I know when I was going through accounting, all the public accounting firms are kind of in your face, trying to get in front of you, trying to find the best candidates. But you absolutely could find positions outside of it. It probably takes a little more difficulty finding them. But if you know there's an industry you want to be in, I know a lot of recruiters would love to work with people that are trying to find jobs outside of public accounting. There's plenty of jobs that have done it. To me, public accounting was a great experience. I got to learn a lot, kind of all in a short period of time. People see public accounting on your resume, and it's a positive. For sure. So I would say if I was, I'm glad that I did public accounting, but there's definitely, ways to not do that. And a lot of people don't. So I think it's definitely a possibility. How much does accounting intersect with data analytics? I actually was sitting on a conference yesterday, and CFO at a large bank, I can't remember which one it was, but a larger bank said, he's looking to hire people with accounting. Accounting gets you in the door, but if you can have data analytics on top of it, that takes your resume to the next level. I would say it's getting more and more important. He kind of mentioned, people that have SQL experience and some data analytic type skills like that will be more and more important. Getting information faster, being able to analyze it, extremely important. And honestly, more so than I realized back when I was in school, that how critical data is, and it's only going to be more so going forward. I would say what I would expect, accountants to be data analytics, like almost like would be a part of all accounting classes. Just having that knowledge in the background, which I think it was a little bit when I was in school, but I would say it should be even more, especially going forward.
All right, if you all have any last questions for Ryan, feel free to type those in the chat now. If not, you can take down his number or email that he's had up on the screen. But thank you so much, Ryan, for being here with us today. I know I definitely learned a lot about accounting, and it was really interesting to hear how important relationships are for that, because I do think we see the stereotypes a lot of people
Yeah.
sitting at their desks working. So I do appreciate all of your insight and knowledge on accounting today. And thank you everyone for joining us. I hope you'll keep an eye out on the Alumni Association website's event page for more Career Day opportunities like this in partnership with the Career Center, as well as our other online events. But thanks again, Ryan. And
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.